Hello and welcome to another episode of DIY EV Chat. A very special episode today. My name's Tom Cheesewright. I'm a relative novice at building your own electric cars, having done one and working on my second. And my guest today is a man whose innovation, whose open source project is at the heart of lots of people's conversions, including mine. Welcome to DIY EV Chat, Johannes Hübner.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Hi.
Now, listen, I need to know, first of all, where this all got started. I've watched, well, I think maybe not all of your videos, but probably most of them now. And there is a level of understanding and knowledge there that is kind of foundational to starting a project like this. So how did you get started in EV conversions and the OpenInverter project? Where did that come from?
Well, it kind of started way back in 2008 when I finished university. And I was kind of unemployed for, I think, 4 months. And was kind of picturing myself getting into my diesel car every morning and starting it up and having all the smoke to commute to work. And that didn't feel right. So I kind of got started into this whole electric propulsion thing and into AC motors. And I was just being a computer scientist by trade. The process was very intriguing of controlling this big machinery with just a few lines of code. So that's what kind of got me excited into all this.
So you studied computer science at university?
Yeah.
And so that sort of 4 months was a kickstart, and then you went into a full-time job, I guess, did you?
Yes, I did. First in the town I lived, and then I moved to where I live now, to Kassel, to work at SMA, who do like big solar inverters.
Okay.
So that was some good learning experience.
And so very much direct experience of the same sort of technology as you're looking at inside the car conversions.
Yes, it's all three-phase inverters, just big larger ones for the megawatt PV plants. But yeah.
And then when did you start to make hardware to go with it? When did that come about?
Well, when I say I'm a computer scientist by trade, I also studied electrical engineering. It was kind of a combined sort of course. But this project really got me into it. Like at uni, I was rather not so good at all the formulas and sigmas and integrals. I hated it. But when actually doing it hands-on, it was quite fun.
It's amazing how much a practical project gives you that motivation.
Oh yes, very much indeed.
So that was back in what sort of when did you release the first board? When did you sort of put that out there that other people could start to play with?
That would have been 2013, so 5 years after I initially got started.
And what was the community like then? Was there a DIY electric car community out there?
Well, at first I was kind of on my own, and for the first 2 years, I'd say. And then I met a guy at this company, SMA, who said, "Oh, you're doing electric car conversions. Do you know this forum? The DIY electric car forum," which I guess all of us know. And I said, "No, I don't." So I subscribed there, and that's how I kind of put my stuff out there.
And encountered other people who've become sort of big parts of that world as well, I guess.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And so what was the first car then? What was the first car that you built?
Well, that would have been the Polo. So the Polo was a very old school conversion. No canvas, not even power steering. An AC induction kind of industrial motor bolted to the transmission, homebrew inverter, and all like analog signals.
Wow.
But it had some innovation in it, as in it didn't have a charger, but it used the motor and the inverter as a charger, because it's an inductor, the motor,
Sure.
And the inverter is switching elements, so you can use it to charge. So it was kind of software-defined charging with no additional hardware.
Wow. I mean, and something people are still doing now.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool. So when was that? When did you get that on the road?
The Polo, that would have been 2014, I think.
And that must have been, was that fairly challenging with the TÜV, with the German inspection regime to get that road legal?
Well, I was lucky because you're right. If you do like homebrew on non-matching inverter and motor combos in Germany, you have to get EMC certification, and it's kind of split. You know this magical 2001 figure?
Yeah.
Before 2001, apparently it's easier. Like the certification process is not as harsh as opposed to later. So what I did was basically hand a case of beer to a colleague at SMA, this inverter company. We just drove onto their free field EMC facility for 3 hours and had it spin and idle, do all the measurements, and Chief said, "Oh, that looks fancy, yeah, it's got to be correct." And it passed.
Yeah, so that, I mean, not everyone has access to a sort of EMC testing facility, I guess.
Yeah, very lucky there.
So you got the Polo done, and do you still have that car?
No, there was an incident.
What happened there?
Basically, the heater was a bit of a chain reaction. The batteries were no good anymore, and this way of charging when it's boosting, and maybe as some of you know, a boost converter can reach an arbitrarily high voltage. So if you remove the load from it, it just rises and rises. So that then triggered the heating, because the heating switching element also has some breakdown voltage. If you pass it, it switches on the heating, but not the ventilator. Yeah. Very smoky.
Yes. So that kind of put paid to the Polo.
Yeah.
And what was next then? What was the next car?
And then was the Turan conversion. I did that before the Polo kind of died.
Right.
Basically because Neo Electric donated me a Nissan Leaf motor, and I had this motor sitting in my shed and spinning and working on all that. And I definitely wanted to put it into a car, to actually put it to a test. And I've always liked minivans, so the Turan is kind of a hitched up Golf.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Very useful size.
Oh yeah, definitely. And yeah, so put the Nissan Leaf motor in there with my very crude mechanical skills. I'm pretty terrible at that, but still good enough. And what I liked, the aspect I liked most about the Turan is that all the EV tech was not intruding into the inside of the car. Like batteries underneath, the motor, well, that would be the engine bay. And if you get into the car, you will not see any indicator that this has been converted.
And you did quite a lot of hacking with the CAN bus on the Turan as well, didn't you, to reuse the instruments and everything?
Yeah, exactly. Like to keep the ESP happy, you have to do quite a lot of hacking, and yes, also to use the instrument cluster or things like climate control. So if you push the AC button, nowadays controls the heater, stuff like that. It's very handy because you don't have to lay new wires to do all that.
And in terms of other components, so it was the Nissan Leaf inverter and motor?
Yes.
And then your control board?
Mm-hmm.
And so how are you controlling? Was that control of the inverter over sort of serial comms, or was that, or were you directly controlling the inverter?
Yes, I actually swapped the brain board out.
Right.
So we know it's possible to control Nissan's original logic with some CAN messages. But I wanted to put my own FOC algorithm to the test, so I swapped out the board. It also allows you to reach a bit more power, which is not that relevant for Turan, but still you can. And but I mean, it was mainly a test bed, so
you wanted the control.
Yes.
And in terms of the other components, is that using a lot of the same things that other people put in, the power steering pump, etc., the vacuum pump, all the same sort of parts?
Vacuum, yes. Power steering, no. It's electric.
Ah! And was that from the factory, or did you retrofitted the electric, did you?
No, it's from the factory, and it's silent. You don't hear it a bit.
What a dream. That's something I need to do on my conversion, because like a lot of people, the noisiest part now is the power steering pump and the vacuum
Yeah,
pump.
I heard you talk about it, and I can much relate.
I think the next one's going to have to go in some sort of insulated box to try and bring the noise down.
Yeah.
Although, then I do slightly worry about pedestrians. They already don't hear it coming, and it's quite low and quite small, so yes, I shall need to be a little bit careful. Some sort of noise generator perhaps, or just a really big sound system.
Yeah. Constantly have it going.
They can just hear my subwoofer coming down the street. Now you're largely doing the work on these on your driveway, aren't you? I saw your big sort of canopy over your Audi. Was that the case with the Turan as well?
Yes, all three conversions just happened in the driveway.
Fantastic. I'm trying to picture where Kassel is in Germany. I mean, I'm familiar. I know sort of the gap between Frankfurt and Stuttgart quite well because my wife's from Heilbronn, but I don't know. I don't know where Kassel is. Is it a warm part of the world or is it a wet part of the world?
Well, it's the middle part of Germany.
Okay.
So if you know Frankfurt, you just drive north a little bit further and then you're in Kassel.
Okay.
Same sort of highway.
So not too bad weather-wise, at least in summer.
Yeah, I mean, better than Ireland, I guess.
Yeah, probably better than Manchester where I am. It's yeah.
Yeah, most of the videos look quite rainy.
Yeah, I mean, it's become a bit of a cliche on the channel that it's a wet day in the north, and it always, I mean, yet again today it is another wet day in the north, which is why I spent yesterday making an adapter plate for my new motor in the laundry room, and then realised just how difficult it is to get rid of metal shavings. Going around with a magnet and a microfiber cloth trying to pick up all the little bits of metal that I've made. But anyway, I do have a garage now, so I shall move in there. So you got the first one through the TUV. What about the second one? Did you have to get the Turan approved as well, or with the matched inverter and motor? Is that rather easier?
That's much easier. You can skip the entire EMC part, and it doesn't matter whether the car is like newer than 2001 or older. So you just hand them a couple of part numbers, like this is a Nissan motor, that's a Nissan inverter. I handed in a bit more part numbers, like the original DC cable and the switch gear, and it looked very impressive, like I used all the original stuff. And yeah, that just got me through it.
Oh, very good. And what's insurance like in Germany? Is getting insured difficult?
No, because I got the car registered and insured before converting it. And then afterwards I called my insurance and said, do you have any special tariffs for EVs or EV conversions even? And they said, yeah, I would take a look. And then they sent me a new bill that was exactly the same number as the old bill, so no difference.
That's very nice. I wish that was the case here.
Is it more expensive?
Insuring my conversion, there's only one company in the UK that we know of who will insure EV conversions at the moment.
Oh.
And it costs £1,500 a year to insure mine.
Oh my God.
That's partly a factor of where I live. I live, in the middle of a city with a fairly high car crime rate. Jamie's electric Beetle, which has the same drivetrain as mine, he's paying about £300 a year. But he lives in a rather more sort of quiet and rural part of the world, so his insurance is much lower anyway. But yeah.
Oh, I see. So it's a full, I don't know what the English term is. We call it Vollkasko in German, where they pay you even if you destroy your own car.
yeah. It's fully comprehensive. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it's the price difference between comprehensive and third party was negligible.
Okay.
It was a very small difference. Mostly it's a factor of my postcode and the fact that only one company will do it, so there's no competition for the price. It's the trade-off. At least being a pre-2001 car, I don't have to pay any tax, so swings and roundabouts, as we say. It's you give with one hand, take away with the other. So you did the Polo, you did the Turan, and you've done a lot of miles in the Turan now, haven't you? I followed your sort of giant tour in it, testing out the technology. Some issues charging at one point, I think.
Yeah, that would have been the Sweden trip. I mean, I did a lot of trips throughout Germany that were pretty much, small niggles, but nothing that kind of stopped me. But then going to Sweden was a different story, especially the further north you get. And you will find out that the granularity of charges drops.
Yeah.
And also that every other one is broken. So while you can do things like aim for 10% state of charge here in Germany, that's not a problem. You should definitely not do that in Sweden. Just leave a big margin for error. So yeah, once I had to get on a flatbed.
I think it's a formative experience of the EV owner. When I was talking to Stuart Dean the other day, he had to get picked up by a flatbed in his Volkswagen T5. I've had to do a battery swap at the side of the road to get myself home, which fortunately it wasn't the car wasn't too far from the house, and I had spare modules, but got there in the end. What modules are you using in the Turan, by the way? What are the batteries in that?
It's always been Nissan Leaf, so I started out with a 24 kilowatt hour pack, and actually did long distances on that. But we spent very much time charging. And now with the 40 kilowatt hour pack, it's you could actually call it traveling.
Very good. And you're working on another conversion now, albeit this one's not for you.
Yes, I suddenly felt the urge to do another conversion. And I think it's again triggered by having a drivetrain in my shed that's not being used. And basically Damien cleared out his stock before moving house, and he sent me his his Toyota Prius transmission and inverters and stuff. So yeah, I said to my wife, I want to do another conversion. She said, "Oh, you're gonna have another useless car in the driveway." And she just didn't agree. So I said, And yeah, I have this friend in where I lived formerly who always wanted to do an EV conversion for himself, so I gave him all the various parts, but he never really got started. So yeah, we just agreed that I do the conversion for him, and I don't have to drive it myself. Isn't that great?
You get all the fun of the project.
Yeah.
So that's a Prius drivetrain, Prius inverter as well?
Yes, because it's got to be matched.
Gotcha. That makes life a lot easier. And that's one thing that is easier here. Actually, you can get away with unmatched parts without much issue.
Oh, that's good.
And no sort of EMC testing. They're more concerned about chassis modifications. You have to sort of keep your points. You get points for everything you change, and you have to keep your points down. But they're not particularly fussed about unmatched parts, which is interesting. And so, what's your you're doing an Audi A2, which I think, as I said to you on the YouTube comments, is a bit of a cult car over here. A lot of car journalists on podcasts I listened to heard them talking about the A2, and there's one at the end of my road which I've sort of half got my eye on. I quite fancy, albeit it's probably not that practical with my kids the age and size they are these days, but very cool car. And so when's the aim to have that on the road?
It's moving a lot faster than all the previous conversions, I have to say. So definitely this year, I'd say. Maybe in summer, if it all goes really nicely to plan.
And where are you going to squeeze the battery packs on the A2?
It's pretty easy once again.
Okay.
Because again, I'm using Nissan Leaf cells. So I found after removing the fuel tank that you can just cut out the metal below the rear seat, and they drop right in. It's like a 2 centimeter margin left and right. Like it's made for it. So it's one half, and the other half is going to sit on top. So this car is not going to have rear seats, but the owner said he never put anyone on his rear seats, so he doesn't mind losing them. All right. Personally, I would put them in the trunk, because there's an equal amount of space in there. But he prefers that. So
yeah,
I'm fine with that.
It's what you need, isn't it? If that's what's useful. You mentioned that your computer science skills and electronic skills are clearly there. You mentioned that the weak points, perhaps your mechanical skills. Has that been the biggest challenge, solving the mechanical problems on these projects, or has it been other things that have caused you the biggest problems?
That's a good question. I mean, I've offloaded the more complicated mechanical things, actually, to this guy Thomas, who I'm doing the A2 conversion for.
Oh, okay.
So I'm sending him photos and measurements, and he does the parts for me. So that's offloaded. Challenges in the conversion. I'd say for the Turan, the ugliest part was mounting the batteries underneath the car.
Right.
Because you have to lift them up from underneath. You have to get between the two battery bricks. I think I sent you a photo that you might show. There's really tight space between the battery bricks, and you have to get in there with the tool and tighten the middle bolts. And that's, all the poles, the battery poles are poking at you, and you're getting in there with your tool.
That doesn't sound like fun.
No.
Yeah, I'll definitely put the photo up so people can see what you mean. It sounds slightly scary, and it's what kind of puts me off the leaf packs is having those sort of exposed terminals and bus bars. They're not the most energy dense, but I do like the BMW modules for the reason that everything is kind of shielded away and it's just sort of compact modules you can slot in.
Yeah, I agree. The leaf packs are not actually the best choice, but it's such a perfect fit in the Turan that I didn't want to roll with anything else.
But they're also, they are widely available. They're well understood.
Mm-hmm.
You can pick up packs at a sensible price. I can see why a lot of people go down the leaf route. I'm just very scared of those voltages.
Yeah, I saw a video the other day when my dad usually comes to help me here, and I gave him an unisolated screwdriver to tighten the bolts. And watching this afterwards, it's just cringe. Oh god. I mean, doing it myself is one thing, but giving it to my dad.
Yeah. It's. I had my she was then, I think, 10-year-old daughter helped me strip down the BMW pack, which raised a few eyebrows. Albeit she also did quite a lot of welding on the car. She welded up a good chunk of the battery box. So at the age of 10, so it's
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, she's the younger one's jealous now. The younger one wants to learn to weld now. So on my second project, the younger one's going to do some of the welding, and she's only 9 at the moment. She might be 10 by the time I get her in some welding gloves. But
wow, that's impressive.
I think it's just they're hungry for learning, aren't they? They're not funny. They're not fussed about the electronics or the computing or the code or anything like that. But they like the mechanical stuff and the aesthetics. They're very good at working out where things ought to fit in the engine bay. What's been the most rewarding aspect of these projects for you? And actually, the wider OpenInverter project, because I've contributed a tiny amount to this community. The only thing I've sort of submitted that people actually use is some 3D printed parts for the Prius inverter. And every time I see somebody else printing those out, the thrill, the reward is absolutely enormous. You must get that kind of times 1,000 with people sort of using OpenInverter for their own projects, don't you?
I do. Especially seeing the high power conversions is especially fun because when you do something new, there's a lot of people or experts who say this is not going to be possible, it's going to perform poorly, and then years later you see people doing donuts with their 400 kilowatt whatever car. Well, it does work. So that is rewarding, but I would say the first-hand experience has always been more rewarding. Like getting this FOC algorithm to actually perform strongly the first time. I think in the forum I express it as it's like sniffing cocaine, even though I've never sniffed cocaine. But that's how I imagine it. It's just such a rush that you finally made it. I'd say that's the most rewarding.
And that's an incredible piece of engineering. So if FOC, field-oriented control, for people who don't understand, this is a more sort of precise method of controlling the motors based on position. If that's my understanding, anyway.
Yes, it's current control versus what's called feed-forward control. So feed-forward means you just dump some voltage into the motor and hope it does something good. But with FOC, it's actually a current control loop that puts a defined current into the motor. So it's not going to overcurrent as easily as the feed-forward control. And it never has.
And I can say from experience, it works very well. It works very well indeed, even on my rather overstressed motor.
Nice, rewarding.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to changing that soon. But it gets us, both me and Jamie, actually using the same motor, same inverter, and FOC control. It gets us around nicely. Do you? Are there challenges with the community as well? Because it has grown so much. And you've got a huge range of people of different levels of experience in there as well. Do you find, are there sort of frustrations being at the heart of that community as well?
No. I think keeping the set of rules down makes it quite easy. So, some forums have rules that you shouldn't dig up 1-year-old posts or threads and that kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, it's still the same topic even years later. Just keep adding to it, no problem. So in the community, I wouldn't say there's any frustration.
That's good.
It's the more unnerving thing is like getting private emails, but I think it's making a way around that I don't really want to do that or answer questions for free, or especially answer them just for one person, the same question over and over again. So please go to the forum, and then everyone sees it publicly. But no, I gotta say it's surprisingly frustration-free, this whole community thing.
That's very good, and it feels like there's a real. I mean, there's a huge amount of life to the community at the moment. A lot of really interesting projects, some incredible builds on there. Do you have a sort of sense of what the future is for Open Inverters and where it's going and what's next?
To be honest, no. I mean, we're gonna see. It's changed a whole lot from like homebrew inverters and motors and to using off-the-shelf, or not off-the-shelf, but second-hand components.
Yeah.
That's been a huge improvement already to repurpose stuff. And I guess it's gonna kind of change in that way as we move along. So we kind of start putting more and more technology from the OEM manufacturers into our conversions. We just gotta keep track to be able to use them. The CCS project is just a great example of that.
Yeah, because CCS is not simple, but sort of cracking that nut and being able to do that sort of fast charging is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. So no greater vision to be honest.
Oh, well, without any ambition, it seems to be progressing very nicely. And having been at, I spent Saturday, over in Yorkshire at an EV meetup, where you've got all of the, you've got Teslas and Kias and Volkswagens and Peugeots, all these electric cars and their drivers. And the two cars that got far and away the most attention were the two conversions.
Always.
And also people absolutely shocked at the order of magnitude difference in costs. I think the cheapest car there was probably a Renault Zoe or the Peugeot. The Peugeot's £30,000, and Jamie's there with his bug plug that cost £2,000, including the car.
Wow, and, that's impressive.
Slightly different in performance and range, but nonetheless, the fact that you can get into this world for a very small amount of money, I think, appeals to a lot of people. And it feels like it's getting more accessible as well. More use of those OEM components. More people out there sharing back their knowledge. It feels like I think it's going to be an interesting few years in that community.
Yes, I saw a very exciting video recently on, I think, a German company in Hamburg, who specialized on the VW T5 and T6.
Okay.
So what they do is they remove the entire front subframe, and like in their factory they pre-manufacture, they put the motor on it, with these, all the EV stuff on the subframe, and then like any workshop can just drop the car onto its new subframe, and the conversion is like 50% done.
Wow.
50 batteries. So they reckon they can do a conversion within 4 days with that technique.
That's amazing. And it's quite similar to I think the guys who were on my podcast a few weeks ago who were doing with the London taxis.
Yes.
With the idea, just drop the whole lot out, replace it with a Nissan Leaf or ENV 200 based stack that just drops straight in. And if you're doing that, the same model over and over again, hopefully very repeatable.
Yeah, that's a big advantage.
Now, what random question I ask everybody: what's your favourite tool? What's the tool that you use most often? I think it's probably some sort of spectrum analyzer or something, isn't it?
I'd say this laptop. I've gone through 2 of these laptops because the first one, basically the battery voltage ran into the one USB port and came out the other USB port. It still worked after that, but the USB port was blown. That was quite amazing. So yeah, I'm quite loving this laptop. It incorporates most functions I need to do, the CAN bus and the scope and all that.
What is it? Is it any particular model you're obsessed with?
No, it just happens to be a Samsung, kind of, what's the Apple version of that? AirBook?
Okay,
It kind of looks like a cheap copy of the AirBook.
That's not dissimilar to my Asus, which is a sort of purple AirBook. So you're working on the A2. Your wife has rather put the rather said no to other projects. But do you have an eye on another car you'd like to do? Is there a sort of future project in your head that at some point you'd like to convert?
I think I would like to do a rear-wheel drive conversion with one of these, what are they called, Lexus 450. They slide underneath the car so nicely, and all the engine bay to work with for all the rest. So eventually, yes, I just have to find someone who will drive it.
It can't be yours.
Yeah, actually, my sister has the same car as Damien converted, this 3 Series. I'm not too familiar with BMW model numbers. E36?
E36, yeah.
No, that's the older one. Yeah, anyway, it's a rear-wheel drive BMW estate, is that what you call it?
Okay, yeah. Touring, yeah.
Touring, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that.
I think, yeah. I wish BMW E30s, so the even older one, hadn't got so expensive, because then I could get the kids in it, and that would be super cool. But we can dream. They're now tens of thousands of pounds because they're so popular over here. But anyway, so I guess it really just remains to say thank you in many ways. I'm so pleased that you got this obsession sort of back in 2008 and decided to put this out there, and have sort of created this and continue to support it as well, because it's OpenInverter was kind of the first place I found myself. I actually found myself there when I was doing some research on the future of the car. It wasn't with a view to doing a project initially. I just sort of stumbled across this forum and thought it was fascinating. It was only when that idea came together with my daughter's fancy for a sort of 60s style roadster that the whole project was born. But yeah, I think it behooves me to say sort of thank you on behalf of everyone who's used it, is using it, is running a car on it, and I'm so pleased it's not a hassle, because I hope you're going to carry on tinkering with this technology for a long time to come.
Yes, I gotta say thank you as well, because just imagine me doing this all on my own. I would have stopped by now, of course. And I'm very happy to say that I'm not Mr. OpenInverter. It's a community that does most of the additions and keeps it moving forward. So very pleased with that. It's a great community. I love it.
Fantastic. Well, listen, thank you so much, Johannes. I would advise anybody, if you are interested in doing a DIY EV conversion, if this is your first experience of it, go and join the OpenInverter community. Go and ask the community questions. Don't start peppering Johannes or Damien with emails. Go and learn from the community. Go and look at other people's builds. There's so much information out there now, and it is growing all the time. And I'd certainly, as a part of that community, would love to have more people in there doing crazy builds, whether they are a sort of a city runabout or a 400 kilowatt monster. They're all good fun to see. So thanks again, Johannes. Really appreciate you coming on, and I shall speak to you soon on the forum, no doubt.
Yeah, see you there.
Bye bye.